What's up, fellow Crash Bandicoot fans? It's Austin CB here, and welcome back to another video. So this is going to be my first re-review, so we're going to be taking another look at the Resaurus, Moto Crash, and Biker Coco bundle. Now, a few years ago, I did a review on these figures, and at the time, I believe it was the first video review of these figures to go up on YouTube. And since then, it has become my most popular video on my channel, but looking back, I felt that I could do some improvements upon it, hence why I am revisiting this bundle. So, most of you may be aware of how extremely rare and sought after these figures are. These figures were actually exclusive to the Resaurus website back in the day, so you couldn't find these in stores, you could only get them through the Resaurus site. And when Resaurus unfortunately went out of business, these figures became much harder to get a hold of. So with the introduction being concluded, let's go ahead and take a look at the accessories. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at some accessories here. So the first accessory we have is the gem. So you get a clear gem with this bundle. And then the next piece here is the stand for the figures. Pretty nice, I actually really like these stands. And then you also get a pair of sunglasses, obviously for Biker Crash. And then the last accessory is an Aku Aku mask. Now this isn't just any ordinary Aku Aku mask, this is actually different from the ones you would see in other Resaurus sets. For one, this one is actually slightly darker, it is more brown. It's also rubberized, so it's slightly flexible, so you can bend it. And it also has an insert on the back, so you can actually put this on Crash's face if you wanted to, so pretty neat. I do want to mention, there actually are photos of the motorcycle, which was cancelled, removed from the bundle. So at one point we were going to get the motorcycle, but we didn't, so thought I would go ahead and throw that out there as a little bonus. But yeah, those are all of the accessories, so let's go ahead and take a look at the figures. So the first figure we're going to be starting with is, of course, Crash Bandicoot himself. So here is Biker Crash in all his glory, and I gotta say, I absolutely love this figure. This is easily my favorite figure in the entire Resaurus lineup. You just cannot go wrong with this figure. Of course, he's got the iconic grin that we all know and love, the squared-off jaw, and he's also got his very nice leather jacket, and as you can see on the back here, he's actually got a C stamp on the back, and he's also sporting his jeans or jorts, and then top it off with some black shoes. Now, another detail that I really like about this figure is the gloves. So you'll see he actually has studded knuckles on the gloves. And then, of course, you've got the sunglasses, which do come off, revealing his green eyes. And they just pop back on like so. And another thing you'll probably notice with this figure is that he's actually a little bit darker. The color on his fur is more akin to a brown rather than a reddish brown. And this is pretty evident when you compare it to the other Resaurus Crash figures. You can even compare it to how Crash looks in some of the artwork for Crash work, specifically the North American box art. You'll notice Crash looks a little bit darker on the cover, which I think this is what this is pretty much replicating. As far as articulation goes, like with most Resaurus figures, there really isn't a lot to offer, but his arms do swivel back and forth, so there's some posability there. His wrists do swivel as well. And then his legs, they also move back and forth, and he also has knee joints as well, so those can swivel. And surprisingly, he doesn't have any swivels in his feet, which actually surprised me when I first got this figure, but the way he's stationed, he actually stands pretty nice, which is good, so you don't have to worry about him falling over or anything. I did get this figure secondhand, so obviously it has its faults and flaws, but overall, it's held up pretty well. So another thing I want to point out is obviously displaying the figure. You have the option to display it on the Crash stand that comes with the bundle, which is evident as you look underneath the feet. You'll see he has inserts. But honestly, ever since I got this figure, I haven't needed to use the stand. He actually stands pretty well on his own. However, I will go ahead and put the stand in just to show you how he looks on the stand. So as you can see, pretty nice, not too bad. But overall, like I said, amazing figure, absolutely awesome. And so the last figure I have to showcase is Biker Coco. So here is Biker Coco in all of her glory. And I really do like how they decided to include her in this bundle instead of the motorcycle, because Biker Coco actually wasn't a thing in-game. You can't access the motorcycle levels as Coco. However, she does appear in some of the promotional material for Warped, so I'll go ahead and throw up some artwork on screen now, just for example. But yeah, this is a really nice figure to have in this bundle. Now, starting off with the design of the figure, of course, she's got her main front ponytail, she's also got her back ponytail, and she's got a black band to hold the ponytail together. Of course, she's got her flower on her head. Her expression is a little bit better on this figure. I know the Coco Resaurus figures can look pretty wonky at times. This one, unfortunately, has a much darker shade to the mouth, which makes it appear like she's got a beard, which is pretty funny looking at it. As for her outfit, of course, she is wearing a different outfit compared to what you would see with other Coco figures. So she's got a midriff top on, and she also has a skirt. So the skirt is a cloth piece, but you can actually pull it down a little bit, which reveals a belt as well. So the skirt is technically removable if you wanted to, you know, do so. And then, of course, she's got her heels on as well. And underneath her heels, she has two holes for where you can put the stand. And yeah, so as far as the posability goes, there really isn't a lot with this figure either. I mean, her arms can move back and forth. She doesn't have any swivels in her wrists. Her legs can also move back and forth, although the joints are very, very tight, so do be careful with that. Her head can also swivel. Her ponytails can move around as well. And yeah, mostly just some swiveling and whatnot. But one thing I want to point out with Coco figures in particular is that they are extremely top-heavy. So, of course, naturally, she has this large ponytail attached to the back of her head, and a lot of the weight is in that ponytail. So when you do try to stand her up, a lot of times she's going to fall backwards. Now, just like with Crash, you can use the stand. I would highly recommend using the stand, but unfortunately, in my case, like I mentioned, I got these figures secondhand. Even though I try to display her on the stand, eventually over time she'll begin to fall backwards. Really, it's just about how you position the figure, but other than that, she seems to be standing pretty well. I mean, I'm not giving her any support right now other than holding her up, and she is standing just fine. But yeah, I mean, honestly, really like this figure. The only thing I would probably change with it is obviously the miscoloring of the mouth. It just does look a little off-putting. But other than that, this is a really awesome figure. And so here they are, Moto Crash and Coco sealed. Now, I actually picked these up not long after I did my first review of these figures, but now that I've done the re-review, I was able to include the sealed set. So if we go ahead and take a close-up look, of course you've got the traditional Series 2 card, and then you also have the figures, as well as the accessories. And one flaw with my set in particular is that, of Crash's arm is actually broken, so whenever I do move the box, his arm does tend to fall out, which is unfortunate, but it honestly doesn't take away from how great this looks on display. I also really like the card down here. Interesting enough, they have a Japanese Coco render on here, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, I absolutely love these figures, and I was very, very lucky to actually get these sealed. The bubble has some yellowing, but really there's no dents or anything like that. I also have a piece of tape up here because there was a small hole in the bubble. I didn't want any dust or grime to get in and damage the figures. So if I go ahead and turn it around, of course we get the overview of the rest of the figures in the wave, as well as an overview of Wave 1. And then we also get a look at some canceled Resaurus waves as well. But overall, super stoked to have this in my collection. I've seen a few more sealed sets pop up since I've gotten this one, but it's very hard to find them in really good condition, especially for decent prices. But yeah, super awesome to have this in my collection. So to close off the review, do I recommend these figures? And my answer is absolutely. If you can get your hands on these figures by any means, whether they're damaged or brand new, I would definitely go for them. And I'm not just saying that because they're extremely rare and hard to find. I genuinely mean it. They are incredible figures. Now, of course, they have their flaws, you know, most Crash Resaurus figures do, but there's a lot of pros to these figures as well, and honestly, they look incredible on display, especially next to vintage Crash items. Now, when I first started collecting, Resaurus was one of the first lines that I wanted to complete, and when it came down to getting the Moto Crash Coco bundle, I wasn't sure I'd ever get a hold of one, but thankfully I was able to get a hold of a loose set and a sealed set to top it off, so very fortunate to have two sets of these figures. Now, if you are looking for these figures, I do recommend checking eBay. They do tend to pop up every so often. Sometimes you can find them loose, separate for relatively decent prices. It just depends, but of course there's always the risk of, you know, quality. You may find some that are broken. They may have chipped paint, but honestly, if you can get the figure, I would go for it. But yeah, that pretty much concludes my review, or my re-review, of the Resaurus Moto Crash Coco bundle. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, feel free to drop a like, comment your thoughts down below, and feel free to subscribe for more future content. I've been It's Austin CB, and thank you so much for watching.